Today we are going to be learning a little bit about essential questions. Essential questions are almost like guiding questions that help give you some direction as you dig deeper into your understanding and into learning. They're really a driving force that help you when you're going on, especially like a personal learning journey, or guide what you're looking at. In the grade 7 science curriculum, sometimes they try to build in some essential questions for us, such as when we're looking at electromagnetism, the curriculum has an example of a question that's what is the relationship between electricity and magnetism? So that helps influence why we're looking at things like electromagnets and how the electrical current moving around the piece of metal actually magnetizes it and turns it into a magnet only while the current is passing through it. Now, what I really want to be able to start focusing on is, what is your essential question? What makes you interested in electromagnetism and helps you develop a little bit of a passion about it, or intrigues your curiosity? Before you can come up with your essential question, there are a few things that you need to do. Before you can come up with an essential question, you need to know a little bit about the topic and really dig into it. And this is why I had you guys this last week start by kind of going, okay, here's what I know about electricity, here's what I know about magnetism, here's what I know about electromagnetism. Now, our 3 little facts barely scratch the surface of what you know. And so what we need to do first is to activate your prior knowledge. So your job now is to grab a piece of paper, open a computer file, and start writing down all the things that you know. You could do this in a list or you could do this in a web, whichever one you prefer. Some questions to guide you as you're activating your prior knowledge are just kind of those 5 W's and an H, right? So who, and you don't have to come up with this from the top of your head. You can quickly look back at the other videos that we've made or research that you've looked at. Are there any who's that you know about electromagnetism? Do you know who the first people to discover the ideas were? Do you know who works with electromagnetics now? The what's. What is involved in electromagnetism? So you know about electricity, you know about magnetism. Do you know what it's used for? When? When was electromagnetism discovered? Do you know when different things came into being? Where? Where is electromagnetics being used right now? Where can you find examples of it? Why? Why does it work? Why, when you pass an electric current around a metal object, does it become magnetized? And when the current stops, why does it stop being magnetic? And how? How kind of is sometimes similar to why, right? How does this work? Why could also be, why is this important? Why do electromagnetics make birds able to know where they are migrating? What does this have to do with it? This would also be a really good time to look at your classmates' answer to the Google Classroom question and see, what do they know? Are there different things that they picked up than you picked up? You can go through some of those other links and resources that I made available when you were looking at ways to kind of get a little bit more knowledge and learn a little bit more. As you're doing this, I really want you to pay attention to what do you find interesting. Whether that means you're taking another color and you are circling or underlining or putting stars next to the things that actually kind of make you want to learn more. And this is also why I had you look up your own kind of surprises, because there might be connections that you can make to electromagnetism that you never would have expected. So please go through and look at what your classmates came up with for electromagnetic surprises. And if there's one you find really interesting, open that link. Dig a little bit deeper. See if you can learn a little bit more about that topic so that you can narrow things down as you're coming up with your own essential question. So there are a few main characteristics of essential questions that we'll have to keep in mind as we start looking at them a little bit more. Essential questions need to be open-ended. So just like in literature circles, when we talk about deep thinking questions, and they don't have a yes or no answer, they don't have one easy to find answer that you can find in the book, These questions also have to be open-ended, so you can't answer them in a quick Google search. Like, if you gave this question to your sibling or to your mom or to your dad, they shouldn't be able to find the answer in 5 minutes with a computer. And it may not actually have a single answer, right? Like a why or a how doesn't always have one answer, but it should kind of keep your curiosity going. Your essential question also has to be able to go deep enough for a grade 7 level, right? The knowledge that a primary student in grade 3 is required to have about how magnets work is going to be very different from the level a grade 7 is expected to have. So really challenge yourself to go, will I learn enough? Will I have to go deep enough that this seems appropriate for grade 7? Or am I going easy on myself? If you are ready, you could even try to challenge yourself to kind of dig to a deeper level than grade 7. Maybe you're feeling like this is more of like a high school level project, but also make it manageable. Even though I'm saying you have to be able to go deep, don't get super ambitious and go, I'm going to do like a grade 12 level depth analysis and interpretation and inquiry on the like pattern flow of the electrons, and then end up not being able to achieve it, right? So we're really looking for right around that kind of grade 7 level. Think of those expectations of what you've had to learn in grade 6, what we've been learning this year, and try to dig in a little bit deeper. The last really important characteristic is that it needs to be personally meaningful. So that's why I'm asking you to find things that are surprising and find out what's interesting to you, what gets your own curiosity intrigued, because you want to enjoy this. This is something that you have to kind of motivate yourself. So it should have some sort of connection to something you enjoy, something you find interesting, some real life application or personal kind of meaning to how this will impact you. And that will keep you going, because the research will be hard and it will be challenging. But if it's personally meaningful, the learning will make a lot more sense and you'll be invested and able to persevere easier. Here are some kind of sample question starters that you could begin with as you're looking. And just, there's a big list, but see which ones stand out to you. Which one questions are actually asking you to weigh two options? So it's kind of this versus that you're comparing. How questions ask you to kind of there's several things. They could ask you to evaluate like how something works. Does it work well? They could ask you to infer, so figure out how does it actually work, or propose an alternative. How would things change if you did this? So what if questions ask you to come up with like a hypothesis or to consider options? So it might be coming up with your own question, right? What if electromagnetism didn't stop? What if as soon as you put an electric current onto metal, it didn't stop being a magnet anymore? It just was magnetic forever. Or to consider some options. What if this happened? What would the repercussions be? Should questions kind of require you to make a decision based on the evidence. So it could be a moral question, like should this be allowed to happen, or should people do this? Or a practical decision, right? Should we do this or that? Not necessarily a should we be allowed to. Why questions are kind of like a cause and effect, right? Why does a piece of metal become magnetic when a current passes around it, right? So here's the cause, the electrical energy, and then what's the effect? Why is it magnetic? How does that work? Some possible question starters. And so see if you just naturally fill these in with things that you know and start to wonder, how would you blank? What would result if this happened? How would you describe this? How does this compare with that? What is the relationship between this and that? So that would be our like, what is the relationship between electricity and magnetism, right? That's an example right there. How could you change this? How would you improve this? How do you feel about this? Why do you believe this? What is your opinion of this? What choice could you have made if this happened? Or instead, what would you do differently if da 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 da? Some other sentence starters could be, why do you feel this? How would you go about solving the problem of this? If you were in this position, would you do this? Why do you or don't you support this? What could improve if this happened? So you'll notice that not all of these are geared super towards science. These questions are offered for literally any subject. So just pick the ones that seem to kind of fit nicely with what you're thinking and interested in. Some sample questions that I just kind of have been coming up with as we've been talking about this unit are, how do animals use electromagnetism? Especially when we're hearing about like migration, right? How do people use electromagnetism in hospitals? Maybe are like MRIs or different things using electromagnetism? How does electromagnetism affect humans? Does it have an impact? Is it negative? Is it positive? How does electromagnetism cause the northern lights? How do you use electromagnetism to build a whichever, right? As you're going through and doing your own research and finding surprises, you might have some interesting topics that you want to narrow down to and develop a question that way. Once you have kind of come up with a few essential questions, and it's okay to have more than one right now, you're going to be needing to ask yourself, right? Is it open-ended? So can you find the answer in a quick Google search, or will it require some intensive study? Is the depth of study appropriate for grade 7? Is it something that a primary student could find the answer to on their own? Or is it on the other end so hard that you would need a PhD to be able to answer the question, right? Try to find something that's appropriate for grade 7. Lastly, you need to ask, is it personally meaningful? And this one is really important. Are you actually interested in finding the answer to this question? It might take you a couple days to figure out what your essential question is, but I really want you to come up with an answer. What do you want to learn about electromagnetism? What is your personally meaningful essential question? I'm going to ask you to give me your essential questions on Google Classroom. You are allowed to give me more than one, and we'll discuss them and see if we can narrow down which one you are interested in. So really take the time, do the research, look into things to find what's your personally meaningful, interesting, essential question. So please submit this to the Google Classroom assignment. You need to have your question by Friday. Earlier is better. The earlier you get it to me, the more we can talk. But it's okay to take that couple of days to really look into information a little bit more and find out what interests you.